Hey, hey, hey! Here we are. We're live, people. We are live, America. We're here for you. You're listening to Restore the Republic, the voice of the people who's had enough. Enough of the corrupt judges, enough of the rogue cops, enough of the lawyers who twist the law and the politicians who trample them. This is a show that airs to ask what happened to our de jure American government and how do we get it back. I'm your host, Sheriff Andrew Wank on unincorporated Richland County, Ohio, and every week we expose the lies and decode the legal traps and empower you to reclaim what's rightfully yours. No fluff, no compromise, just facts. With me as always, Sheriff Adam Bonner on the unincorporated Summit County, Ohio. How's it going, Adam?
Pretty good. How about yourself tonight?
Doing good. Doing real good. You know, I like the way things are starting to really move here in the assemblies, and the way social media is picking up all over this stuff. You know, the American people are starting to wake up. Well, anyways, I'm excited about our lovely guest, she's back. She's back for more. She's Tessa Rockwell. She is the court clerk of the unincorporated Ohio Assembly.
Welcome.
Jurals Assembly, yes. How's it going, Tessa?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Yeah, no problem. We always like more, you know, we're going to try to get more and more people on. So if anybody's out there, leave it in the comments. Tell me you want on. We'll try to get you on if you're not a nut job, but
You mean I'm not a nut job?
well, you're partially. You made it. You was under the limit.
Okay, all right.
Well, hey, anyways, tonight we got a good little talk that we want to talk about freedom. It's about what do we mean when we say freedom? Basically, this is to everyone out there in the audience and everybody that's going to watch. What do we mean when we say freedom? You know, freedom is one of those words you hear so often we stop noticing how powerful it really is. Politicians promise it, soldiers fight for it, movements rise and fall in its name, and every one of us at some point has said, I just want to be free. You know I've said that in my journey as a state national. I said that a long time ago. I wish people would just leave me alone. I just want to be free. But here's the twist. When we say freedom, we're not talking about the same thing, not even close. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this word and explore how different definitions, freedom, shape our lives, our rights, and even our sense of identity.
Excellent. Well, let's start with something simple. If you ask 10 people what freedom means, you'll get 10 different answers. For some, freedom means the ability to speak their mind. For others, it means the right to own property. For others, still, it's the ability to live without government interference. And then there's the deeper, more philosophical version, the freedom to choose your own path, your own beliefs, your own destiny. But here's where things get interesting. In the United States, the word freedom has multiple legal definitions, not just philosophical ones. And depending on which definition applies to you, your rights and your limitations can look very different. So we're going to look at the arguments that Americans have been living under two different systems of freedom without realizing it. And that confusion has shaped everything from our political status to our daily lives.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, I see Chad Morgan in the chats there. How's it going, Chad?
Chad Lee.
You know, he's saying if you're a U.S. citizen, you're a slave. Well, you know, us state nationals know that. We're trying to relay the message to them and try to get them to change their political status. But yeah, I was going over tonight, you know, earlier today, I was looking into some of the rights that people have, that U.S. citizens have, you know, and once you start learning about all that on how their courts don't accept some of their rights, you know, they don't have their at least the 10, you know, the Bill of Rights, the first 10, they only have like maybe 1, 2, and 3, partially another 5, or, you know, it's so weird. And they should be able to, you know, nobody looks into this stuff, so they don't even know, but you try to tell them.
Yeah, lower inferior courts do not honor constitutional guarantees or Bill of Rights. I mean, they can talk about it all they want, but even in the Court of Common Pleas, you know, it's right out the window for the majority of the cases I've seen. So,
yeah, I think it all starts with that 14th Amendment.
Right.
How they roped everybody into into one
Well,
category.
I believe this is just me speaking, but I am the one that holds the equitable value, and they're trying to monetize off of my value through securities fraud. So I don't think they should be giving me shit at all.
There we
So
go.
if I bring the value and they want that value based off my performance, then I think that's kind of where we have, the confusion. So
Oh
people need
yeah.
to know what square they stand in if they want to be on the right side of the law. Not
Yeah,
the
if the people want to hear all about that securitization and all these bonds they got going on in these courts, probably about 3 or 4 episodes ago, we went over all that, all the bookkeeping, the secret books, just crazy.
It's
Go ahead, Jeff.
nuts. It's absolutely nuts. I had no idea until I got involved with you guys and with the state nationals. I had no idea. So much is just about the money. It's crazy. So anyway, okay. So there are 2 major categories of freedom operating side by side. So the first, the lawful freedom. This is the freedom you're born with. It's tied to natural rights. The idea that your rights come from your creator, not from a government. And this includes things like the right to travel, the right to own property, the right to work and to keep the fruits of your labor. Oh my gosh. The right to live without interference unless you harm someone. This version of freedom is rooted in natural law, common law, in the original intent of the American founders. I tell you what, they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Hey, some people talk about that. She just mentioned the right to travel. I've heard so many people try to talk about it like, well, they meant that you have the right to travel through other states and this and that. Well, they might have meant that, but along with traveling anywhere in your state on any road that we, the people, have paid for, it's a right. It ain't no privilege.
well, you have an inherent God-given right to locomotion. So here we go, getting into the legal jargon and word salad games. And so we're not talking about traveling. We're not talking about driving, which is a commercial term. Licensing is for commerce. I'm not operating in commerce. I'm not operating at all. That's another commercial term. So I'm just going from point A to point B. I'm not profiting in any way. I don't have passengers. I have companions, and we're not doing anything, on the legal commerce, side at all. Like we're just doing American things over here.
Minding our own business.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm not doing anything wrong. I haven't destroyed anybody's property. I haven't caused anybody harm yet. And, until that happens, then we don't have an issue. All that other, the revised codes and things pertaining to their, traffic infractions and whatnot, that has nothing to do with us at all. So. But anyhow, we're talking about legal freedom and lawful freedom here. So what is legal freedom? This is the freedom you're granted by a government, a de facto one at that. It's based on statutes, codes, and regulations, as we know, ordinances. It's conditional, meaning it can be expanded, restricted, or revoked. Legal freedoms include licenses, permits, registrations, regulatory compliance, from Johnny Lawman, and civil rights that exist only within a specific jurisdiction, not in the lower state inferior courts, tribunals, if you will. So we argue that most Americans today operate under legal freedoms, not lawful freedom, and that this shift happened quietly, gradually, and without full public understanding. Think about all of that for a minute. 2 definitions of freedom, 2 sets of rules, 2 different identities, one natural and one legal. Most people don't even know which one they're living under at all. And it shows. I mean, I see people out there all the time that are status corrected and they're not doing their research. and they're dabbling, between multiple jurisdictions, talking about all kinds of wild things that have nothing to do with what we should be focusing on. And it's causing a lot of confusion across the states. Ohio's really big on confusion. So we just wanted to nip that in the bud.
Yeah, I just hope that everybody out there, understands or comprehends why we're doing this. Why are we getting together, state nationals, state citizens, and assembling? We talk about this all the time to bring up our court system, the system that's meant for the people, not legal entities. We've talked about this over and over and over. There is no remedy to be found in their legal C jurisdiction courts. So, it all goes into like, if you're driving on the road, like they say, and get pulled over and you sit there, as state nationals, we should not be arguing with them or trying to teach them anything on the side of the road, because they do not care. They're uneducated. They're not taught any of this stuff. They don't know. So it's just basically a waste of time, and it gets you into more and more trouble, because they'll use all their legal statutes against you.
But
and
that's
anything
their
you
job.
say, just listen to what they're saying.
Their
And will
job-
be used against you.
Their job is to regulate, and push compliance of statutes, codes, regulations, right? Ordinances.
Yeah.
So, it's not their business to know the law. It's their business to know the legal, the commercial side of stuff. That's what they're enforcing. Policies, things like that don't matter to us. It's not because we're not lawful people. We're not legal people. We're lawful minded. We're doing things lawfully and within our, our inherent rights.
Yeah.
So couldn't give those rights away even if I wanted to. They're stuck with us. So people just need to wake up.
It's funny. The other day, my husband and I were talking about if you're pulled over by a police officer, what are you going to do? Are you armed and ready to have a gunfight?
Sure.
Because he has a gun. I don't have a gun.
Well, then that's a problem.
I'm a peaceful people.
Right.
So,
yeah, we're not trying to have a shootout on the side of the road. But we know how
so if you get pulled over, just be peaceful, be patient. Our courts are coming. They're up. They're ready. Just we'll take care of it in our court, not in a shootout on the street. So anyway, all right. So here is something that might surprise you. And I did not know this. The word freedom is often used as a brand, not a reality. Government uses it. Corporations use it. Oh my gosh, political campaigns use it. Even wars are named after it. But what does it actually mean in those contexts? We often point out that freedom can be used to describe a system where you're technically free, but only within a controlled framework. You are free to drive, but you got to get a license. You're free to work if you follow the tax codes. You're free to own property as long as you pay property tax or risk losing it. This isn't necessarily bad or good, but it's important to recognize that this is legal freedom, not natural freedom. And when people talk to each other about freedom, it's often because they're using the same word to describe two completely different realities.
You said something interesting there, Tessa.
Yes, dear.
Talking about licensing and driving, and I guess it brings up, my issue is not with these policy enforcement agencies or their officers. It's the fact that, they are not qualified through the DOT to handle these issues anyways. The DOT is supposed to handle anything related to the roads, and you're supposed to go through them for any type of, commercial issues or infractions. The stuff's not hard to look up, and yet here we are, having a discussion about it. And there's several people in the comment section that actually touched on it, that they're aware of that. And I know there's a case going on down in Tennessee. The guy calls himself the smartest man with the bow tie. He's actually fighting that to go to the proper venue, which is through the DOT. So I'm interested in seeing the outcome of that, because so far, I mean, he's doing big things down there. I think they're kind of shook. So anyhow, you had something to say there, Sheriff Andrew?
No, I'm good.
Well, okay, so there's another layer of this conversation, one that philosophers have debated for centuries. There's freedom from something, freedom from oppression, freedom from coercion, freedom from governmental overreach, and then there's freedom to do something, freedom to create, freedom to speak, freedom to travel, freedom to build a life in your own terms, not some buddy telling you what you can or can't do. We often emphasize, that lawful freedom is both. You're free from external control and free to exercise your natural rights. Legal freedom, on the other hand, tends to focus on the freedom to, but only within a regulated structure. So understanding this difference is key to understanding, the entire debacle. And it really is a shit show.
Yeah, that's interesting. The just the freedom from and the freedom to. People don't think about that all the time, but it's interesting to hear. Because you just don't put them together naturally. It seems like, I don't know, but before we can talk about reclaiming freedom, before we can talk about asserting our rights, before we can talk about sovereignty, citizenship, or jurisdiction, we have to ask the most important question: which freedom are we talking about? Because the answer to that question changes everything.
Natural freedom. The birthright you don't need permission for. That's the kind of freedom that doesn't come from governments, documents, or declarations. A freedom older than nations, older than laws, older than every institution we built to organize ourselves. It's the freedom you're born with, the one no one can grant you, no one can take away unless you forget it's yours. Natural freedom isn't a slogan. It's not a political party. It's not a movement, a club, or a rebellion. It's the simple, powerful truth that you exist before any institution does, before laws, before governments, before jurisdictions, before systems of control or administration. You, the living being, are the original authority over your life. What a concept! Who would have known? Ah. Natural freedom is the recognition that rights are not granted, they're recognized. They are not bestowed, they are acknowledged. They're not licensed, they're inherent. You don't need permission to be what you already are. Imagine that.
Right.
Woo!
However, there is a process, to certify that, and get it recorded. Because you have to undo all of the things that you unknowingly got deceived into by tacit agreement. So that's what we've been talking about for close to 4 years on here now. Something like that. Anyhow, so I got a question. So how did we forget something so fundamental? When it comes to everything that we just discussed, like, how do you just, okay, so it's indoctrination camps that they call school, public education, that's been getting watered down for a while now, quite a few decades. They're removing history as we go. They're making simple things like basic math and arithmetic just extremely difficult to boost test scores and to make good test takers, but not to make people smart enough to go do, college math. So what if you wanted to be an engineer or something that requires a ton of math? You're not going to get that from Common Core, are you? Have you actually seen how they do Common Core? It's ridiculous. And I've seen a group of engineers out of Akron challenge, the state over that. And they made very valid arguments. And at the end of the day, these people just do what they want. So because of systems like that, especially large bureaucratic ones, They love categories. They love labels. They love boxes to put people in, categorize you as something that you're not.
Yeah.
And over time, those boxes become so normal because people aren't doing their research and going, hey, wait a second, wait a damn second, So anyhow, it goes from that to, people just stopped asking whether they were, accurate categories to be in. Is this what I really am? Or is it okay for people to call me that? Hey, I don't feel comfortable with that. So, we started thinking the rights were negotiable, that authority was external, that we needed to apply for what was already ours. That's a big one. So, but here's the truth, that disrupts that entire narrative. A system can only define you if you agree to be defined. And most people never consciously agree. They simply inherited assumptions. Have you ever heard the saying that they operate off assumptions and presumptions of law?
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
Exactly. Legal freedom is the freedom you are allowed to have. A freedom with conditions, a freedom with expiration dates, a freedom that can be suspended, revoked, or denied. And that is right there. The driver's license is the perfect example. It is not, it's not a right to have that driver's license. It's a privilege. They're giving these US citizens the privilege to drive on these roads. And if they don't follow the rules, they'll take that license away. It's kind of freedom that says you may speak unless we decide it's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. You may travel unless we say otherwise. You may own property as long as you pay for that privilege. It feels like freedom, but only because the walls are invisible.
Yeah, legal freedom is not the freedom you were born with. It's the freedom created by statutes, codes, and administrative rules. It's the freedom of a registered entity, not a living being.
Man-made
the freedom
legislation.
Of a citizen. I'm sorry, what, Adam?
Man-made legislation.
Yes. It's the freedom of a citizen, not a sovereign. The freedom of someone who might ask who must ask, hey, can I go outside? Well, it depends. What are you going to do? Can I go in the store? Well, I don't know. It depends.
Not if you don't have your mask on. If you don't have your mask on, you can't go in that store.
That's funny. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
it's the kind of freedom that says you're free, but we're in charge. Most people don't even realize they're operating under this version of freedom. They think it's normal. They think it's natural. I used to think it was normal. I used to think it was natural, but not anymore. I woke up. I listened to these two guys right here. I listened to Andrew and Adam. I read my books. I did my research. I woke up. I opened my eyes. And some people, it's so sad, but they think it's the only kind of freedom that exists. So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, legal freedom is built on the idea that you must ask to drive, ask to build, need a permit for damn near everything, ask to work, ask to own something, ask to exist within a system. But think about it. Why would a free being need permission to exercise a right? Why would you need any type of license to do something that living men and women have done for thousands of years? Why would you need approval to use your own property? Why would you need a permit to speak, to gather, to assemble, or defend yourself? Because legal freedom isn't about empowering you. It's about managing you. And anytime you step out of line, they're right there to crack a whip, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
You're not allowed to come to these city meetings and say that. What are you doing? Hey, I didn't threaten you. Those aren't fighting words. Simmer down, Ted. Right?
Right.
Not here to kick your ass. I'm here to tell you what's up, what we're observing, things that you're not supposed to be doing, but yet you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, why would you need a permit to speak, gather, or defend yourself? Because legal freedom isn't about empowering you. It's about managing you in a system to keep you compliant, predictable, and easy to categorize. People defend this system because they believe it keeps them safe. Well, people that conform and comply, yeah, they're going to be in that box where they feel nice and secure, right? As long as they follow these rules within these certain lines, right? It's weak.
Yeah.
But, safety without autonomy is not freedom. It's dependency, codependency, if you
That
ask me.
is. Well, legal freedom gives you choices,
Right.
but only with a predefined menu. It's like walking into a restaurant and being told you can order anything you want as long as it's on the list. That's a funny one because as we were younger, we always thought about that. You can have anything you want, and then you wanted something, but it wasn't on the menu, so you can't have anything you want. You learned your lesson there. You can vote, but only for the approved candidates.
Yep.
And that's a big one because a lot of these U.S. citizens just aren't getting that. They are not getting the fact that these candidates have been chosen for them. They're just getting to pick the biggest idiot out of the group,
True.
You can travel, but only with approved documents. You can work, but only in approved ways. And you can own, but only under approved conditions. This isn't freedom. It's a controlled environment. It's a sandbox, a simulation. Most people never question it because they've never tasted anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Conformity.
Yep. And we're doing good because there's a growing awareness, a quiet, powerful awakening that legal freedom is not the highest form of freedom. People are beginning to sense that beneath the layers of paperwork, registrations, administrative categories, there's something older, something deeper, something that doesn't need permission. Woohoo! A freedom that comes from existence itself, a freedom that predates institutions, a freedom that cannot be revoked because it was never granted. This is the freedom of the living being, a freedom of natural law, the freedom that simply is.
Wow.
I like it.
Well, so, this is the call to wake up. You're not as powerless as you've been led to believe. Modern systems, legal, financial, governmental, have drifted far from the original intentions of the founders. Many people unknowingly operate under assumptions about citizenship, contracts, and authority that they never consciously agreed to. Start looking at things before you sign them. These tacit agreements are screwing everybody right out of their freedoms. It's
Yes.
ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's why, literally, that's why you hear, the devil's in the details,
Oh, yeah.
in the fine print. They do that for a reason. Nobody reads that fine print. Very few do. You know what I mean?
One of the easiest ways to keep a mass of people illiterate and just not in the know is to just hide it in the details. People don't like to read. Put it in the book. Right?
Exactly. Well, how much of your life is shaped by systems you never examined? Think about it. How many forms have you signed without reading, just like we're talking about? How many rules do you follow simply because that's how it's done? You hear that all the time. That's how it's done. Even law enforcement officers will say that. They don't know what's going on, but that's how it's done. How often do you assume you have no choice? It's not about rebellion. It's about awareness. It's about waking up to the idea that freedom isn't something handed to you. It's something you must understand, claim, and maintain. And I've heard a lot over the years, even when I was younger, people would say that a lot. We even have monuments here in the town here that say freedom is not free. But it's always it's like a military monument, about, we get our freedom from guys going over and fighting for it. And I never agreed with that because, me studying, me being educated about some of these wars that we were over there fighting.
Yeah,
None of that shit had to do with freedom. You know, they want to put it on commercials and pump the nation up to back everybody, to back the country, to back their ideas of what freedom is. And freedom ain't going over fighting for oil. Freedom ain't sending our young kids, our brothers, our sisters, our, you know, over there to be butchered. That ain't freedom. So it put a bad taste in my mouth. And, you know, that's why I wanted to talk about this tonight.
Yeah, it's everybody's duty. It's everybody's civic duty to be involved, to be self-educated in their rights, because they're not going to teach it to you anywhere. Unless if you go to some, you know, college to do some type of law degree that's really just administrative processes, arguments on debate, how to draft an affidavit, and maybe some 101 high-level stuff in civil rights or constitutional law. And, you know, that's just the world we live in right now. They're not doing common law. They teach them very ridiculous things pertaining to common law. I don't even know if they cover a few chapters on it. They probably just do like a couple paragraphs, done, on to the next thing. But, you know, that's just taking the people that are supposed to be here, you know, defending people's rights further from, you know, their rights, if you think about it. Because now they got to jump through all these administrative hoops and securities fraud and unlawful conversions, and basically you're the equitable principal owed if they harm you, right? But you're not going to get the remedy there. So it's just all constructive fraud. The more I read into
you know what I see going on today, literally today in Washington, D.C., the people are starting to see the two-tiered justice system, the cover-ups, the bullshit.
Oh,
And all we have to do is get these people to comprehend that has always been there. They hid the American government from us. You know, that's what they done. That was their biggest deception, of hiding these positions that we should fill up and take back our sovereignty, take back what's ours.
right. And you want to know why that?
The biggest thing isn't about all these guys online that are getting pissed off. You should be pissed off. We should all be pissed off,
Right.
but not to the point that we're going to hurt people. And, you know, not to that point, because all we have to do peacefully and lawfully is assemble and get our courts running again, and we can take this shit back. You know what I
You
mean?
want to know why they force people to be places under threat, duress, and coercion? You know why they use the de facto Leo agencies to drag you into court? It's because you hold the equitable value. They need you to perform in their legal process to take your equitable value from you on the private side of their ledgering. That's all it comes down to. You hold the equity, you hold the value. There isn't anything monetary going to benefit them until they drag you into court under threat, duress, and coercion, and you know, then do all kinds of unlawful conversions and things that they shouldn't be doing, because they don't deal with the living, they deal with legal fictions. And you know, I just can't emphasize that enough. You know, there's no value in me showing up to some place to be hijacked and robbed from my private trust. Why would I want to go be robbed and have my private trust ripped off? They think people don't know about this stuff. So no, I don't have collaborative agreements with the de facto, with their tribunals. We have our own courts, and we don't rip people off and steal from their trust and their inheritance. So, you know, don't even ask. I'm not interested.
we were
Anyway,
just playing around one day having a mock trial for the fun of it. And Adam came up with the punishment for me that I had to go to anger management. This has been like 2-3 years ago. I'll never forget that. Hey,
Where's
we
your
don't want
certi-
your
did
money.
you get a
We just want a remedy. You know, it didn't
well,
work.
I mean, it helps, right? It's supposed to help, you know, keep your blood from feuding. You probably got German and Indian in there, so, you know, or Italian and Mexican or something.
I don't know. It's sad though, because most people don't know how the systems around them actually work. Okay, so we use money without understanding how it's created. We
Mhm.
follow laws without knowing how they're structured. We participate in government without reading the document that define it. And that's not a conspiracy. That's just modern life. We're busy, we're distracted, we're overwhelmed. When people start learning how things work, how they really, really work, they often feel more empowered, more confident, and more capable of shaping their own lives. Personal sovereignty, the belief that individuals have inherent rights that don't come from government, but from existence itself. Now, this idea isn't new. It echoes through the Declaration of Independence, through natural law, philosophy, through spiritual traditions around the world. But we push it further. We challenge people to take responsibility for their own status, their own choices, their own identity within the land and the soil jurisdiction.
Bingo.
Amen to that.
Preach it,
Well,
girl.
yeah. Anyways, man, there's so many things in there, just talking about the
Mhm.
unanimous Declaration of Independence and through natural law philosophy. And I mean, that's all powerful stuff. That right there is a perfect start for anybody, to just read. Get stuff in
Yeah.
your hands and read, people. Freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. It's about self-governance. You take care of your own responsibilities on your own accord, as long as you're not harming anybody or destroying anybody's property or anything like that. You're not just a sack of shite and just nasty to people in the public. You're supposed to love thy neighbor, right? I'm not saying go have affairs with your neighbor. I know some people literally read the good book and take it that way because they're warped. But no, you're supposed to be kind with your neighbors and, love your neighbor as you would want them to return love to you, right? Kind heartedly. You look out for them when they go on vacation, look out for their home, their property, their assets, right? Just like you would expect them to look out for yours when you have to travel.
Yeah.
Um, an emergency comes up, you need to leave the state. Like there's a lot of people I know that had to go down to the Carolinas when all that stuff happened last year. And, I was doing my rounds in the area. People had to leave and go down south. So I was making sure their yard was staying cut, making sure their flowers were pretty when they came back, that type of stuff, because I know that they would do that for me. So that's what we're talking about, being neighborly, not too neighborly. So, it's not enough to say I'm free. You have to act like you're free. You have to think like you're free. You have to live like you're free. So what does that mean? It means, reading what you sign. Read all of those contracts, the fine print, ask questions. Do not get duped. Put various things above where you would put your autograph, to protect you, void where prohibited by law, whatever. So you need to understand or understand or overstand your rights, whichever one of those squares you want to stand in. Ask questions. Stand up when something feels wrong.
Mhm.
Choose your path instead of drifting along, one that was chosen for you, because we don't like to be followers, we like to lead. So, what does this, restoring freedom actually look like in everyday life? It starts with education, learning the difference between assumptions and facts, between rights and privileges, between what you're told and what's actually written in law and history. Restoring freedom can mean simplifying your life, reducing dependence on systems you don't trust, building community, supporting local economies, learning practical skills, becoming financially literate. It's a nice one. Speaking up when something doesn't sit right. That's
Mhm.
where you take those issues to the city, then to the county, then to the state.
Yeah,
Pick up
that's good.
traction with it. Get like minded people to join. I see we got quite a few people trying to abolish property tax. A few states have already done it. We shouldn't be being taxed on our property anyways, people. We shouldn't be being taxed on cars, automobiles, whatever you want to call it, your conveyance of the day. Once I pay cash for that bad boy, it's mine. I should have the MCO in my hand. I shouldn't have to be jumping through dealer hoops to be a dealer now to get the MCO. I don't want their commercial title. I want my MCO, right? I want the allodial title to my home because I paid for it, right? So
Right.
these are things that people need to be looking at, you know?
You know what? It's so easy to go with the flow, though. It's safe,
True.
like you said earlier. It's just easy. You don't want to make waves. You don't want to, cause anybody
I
to
don't
be like,
like
oh no, what's going on?
easy
But
feels
man, once
wrong.
you do, you do.
You know what I'm saying? Easy feels wrong. I don't know what it
It
is.
does.
It's like, I mean, I could refer to, referencing things pertaining to dating. If it seems too easy or too good to be true, it's probably Satan in a red dress on
Well,
Valentine's
it's like
Day.
earlier, when I was talking about, people just do it because that's the way it's done. That's the way it's
Yeah.
done. No one ever questions anything. It's just the way it's done. Well, I've never been like that. My entire life, you could ask my parents. They would come on here and testify. I didn't listen to anything. You know, I really didn't. And not
Right.
in a bad way. I just had my own way, and that's the way we should all be. We should be free to choose that path, because it'll work out. As long as you stay lawful, don't hurt no one or their property. That's what common law is all about. We've talked about this in assemblies. We've talked about this as friends. The 10 commandments. There's only 10 commandments. The Bible, Moses, God, 10 commandments. Most people on this planet cannot follow 10 simple commandments. You know what I mean? They can't. And it's sad.
Mm.
But here we are, bringing up restoring our American government under common law, and there's only 2 commandments, really. Don't hurt no one and don't hurt their property. That's it. We can do that, people. We can do that.
Mind blown.
Join in. Join your assembly. You only have to follow 2 rules.
Yep.
It can be done.
Crazy.
Where in my life have I given up freedom without realizing it? Because the truth is, freedom isn't restored by governments. It's restored by people, by men and women, by you, And the first step is simple. Wake up, pay attention, ask questions, and never forget that your life, your choices, your voice matters more than you've ever were ever led to believe. So we talk about it all the time, people. You got to change your political status. Being a U.S. citizen is almost not cool anymore. It's just outdated. It's starting to become a meme. It ain't cool anymore. People are learning too much. I think these guys back in the 1700s and early 1800s, they never had a clue the internet was going to be here. They never knew information was going to be shared so frequently that you can literally become a lawyer, a physician, almost anything you want just by watching YouTube videos,
True.
It's
YouTube
crazy.
certified.
But the information age is here and it's out. People are starting to learn all this stuff. They're starting to learn their inherent rights that they never thought of before, and what this U.S. government has done to them, how they chained them, abused them. It's sad.
I see
Anyways.
somebody comment that says there's no statute of limitations on fraud.
Exactly.
And yeah, maybe in common law and in our courts, where living men and women go. As far as the administrative tribunals and, legislative tribunals and all their separation of power doctrine violations, they've already written all the backdoor stuff pertaining to fraud or constructive fraud, or like they've put 2 years on it, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years. They've given them statutes of limitation. But I think what you're referring to is the actual actor, wearing the robe, committing all of the crimes, the fraud that they perpetrate, the racketeering, all that stuff. You've got like 21 years to go after them, and then a potential 3 years if they stay in practice, but they go elsewhere outside of that court. You can go after them for an additional 3 years. So it's not that there's not a limit on it. It's just, there's a couple different ways to look at that and how to interpret it. So just something to think about.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a good show tonight, a good talk. I've learned a little bit of stuff, researching some of this stuff. Freedom, it's on us. It's on you. It's on it, every one of us. Make your own freedom. Stop following along with those administrative, well, change your status first to an American. Then stop following their bullshit.
Right. Then, send correspondence actively, ask questions. We know that these people are actors. We know that there's a lot of theatrics going on in these vacated offices. We know that the blanket policy is a bunch of BS. That's not in alignment with how people are properly oathed and bonded. We know that oaths are not in alignment. We know FARAs don't exist. We know that a lot of these people claim to be U.S. citizens sitting the bench, and they're foreign agents. Most of them are attorneys. Some of them aren't. Some of them are. You just got to do your research.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jokers downtown Akron. I can't wait to get after some of them.
Well, I want to tell you what. Hey, Tessa, thanks a lot for stopping by. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Love it.
Yeah, it's
Love
good
to
to have
see
you on,
again.
Tessa.
And Adam, thanks a lot.
Anytime.
Everybody, I just want to let you know that we do have a Cash App if anybody wants to donate. It's $APC140. And get out there, start talking to your neighbors and your friends. Get your communities going. Get your statuses changed to American. Join your assemblies. And remember, it's not just about you. It's about your children, your community, and your country. Their system only works if you stay asleep. So wake up, stand up, and speak up. Please.
Amen to that.
All right, we'll see you all later. Thanks for stopping by. And remember, hey, we're out here. The sheriffs right now that were elected, American sheriffs, we're working for you. We're getting things done.
Yeah,
We'll see you all later.
Thanks.